it really comes down to a question of imagination. And Einstein had a quote that said that imagination is more important than knowledge. So what you really have to project yourself when you're talking to people, particularly doing your interviews, is to put yourself in their shoes and be interested and show your concern for what they're saying to you, because in the absence of your concern, those stories will be left untold. And the way that you're going to get the majority of your information outside of the research is by conducting interviews. What makes a successful interview then? All of you are in favor of saying it's asking all of your questions. Raise your hand. Excellent. How about discovering a great story? The preponderance. Oh, voting for both sides. I like that. Covering your bets. Yes. And you can see that slavish adherence to the piece of paper that might be in front of you is going to mean that you're not paying attention to what the person is saying. A classic example of that for people much older than you guys was the first presidential debate between President Kennedy, then to be elected President Kennedy, largely because of the performance in the debate, and Vice President Nixon. Interestingly, the people that heard the debate on the radio judged Nixon to have been the winner. The people that saw the television broadcast judged John Kennedy to be the winner. So there are cues that are going to be presented to you visually that you need to pick up and you need to take advantage of. And if you're looking down at the piece of paper for your next question, you're not going to be, your eyes are not going to be focused on the person who's actually doing the answering for you, and you're not going to be capable of thinking about a follow-up if you're just looking at your next question. Very rarely, in my experience, do we have a case where we prepare questions and we go through them exactly in order. More likely the case is if we do get to all of them, they might be in a grouping of 1, then maybe 1 branches off to 4, 4 goes to 7, maybe back to 2, 3, 8, and through the course of the conversation, because what they're going to be doing is they're going to be answering in such a way that it's a logical transition for you just to go to that, they've introduced the topic, you go to that point of that point that you wanted to get to, the part that you wanted to cover. And you can also just take advantage of them when they're not going to actually do the question that you thought of, and it takes you off on a different journey. And what you're really trying to do, again, which everybody raised their hands for, so I'm very proud of all of you right off the bat, is discovering a great story, because nobody's keeping score from the interview and say, well, you got an unbelievable story. That's something that nobody's ever heard before. That's a point of view that nobody had ever captured, but you didn't ask question 6. We're really disappointed that you didn't get to number 6. And who cares? All right. So it'll be this successful interview live demonstration will be kind of easy because everybody's already predisposed to think it's a great story. So what I'd like to have is 2 volunteers, and we'll actually perform this. Actually, I can go probably right around in here. Anybody? When I do this, people breeze right through the first one. They don't even ask a follow-up on the first one, so you jump right on the first one. So that's excellent. Because again, I mean, the whole point is getting a story, and usually that can be as easy as narrowing down if the person tells you, like Rebecca did, something general, and then trying to get to something specific. And there's another example that I want to show you that Katie Couric did that got a little bit of attention in this last election season, where she was going for something specific. But first, obviously, keep your eyes on the prize. The prize is the great story, and how are you going to get that great story is actually talking to the person and getting their story. Know your questions beforehand. You saw it demonstrated for you that Ryan was able to look at this piece of paper, which, no magician trick. I mean, he had never seen before. We'd not planned this out before. He'd never seen it. And he just instantly got it, and then was able to keep his attention on Rebecca for her answer. So he could pick up cues of how her body language and how she was going to respond. And that's vital if you're going to get the story, because you have to establish a rapport. And there's a whole bunch of science behind body language, but the shorthand of it is if you have eye contact with somebody, then they actually know that you're listening to them and you're interested in what they have to say, and they're more likely to tell you. Now, obviously, the people that you're dealing with these are very, very special cases. They lived through traumatic times. These memories, in many ways, are still fresh, and they can, it can be a more challenging interview than what we just showed you. So there's great care in what they're saying, and great compassion in how you treat the people that you're talking to, so that they feel comfortable enough to share their story, because they do want to share their story. The last part of it would be, of course, planning your follow-ups. There's a line in an old song about, a Rod Stewart song about a woman, and her ad-lib lines were well rehearsed. And some of that also applies to doing an interview, because you can, again, use your imagination, think of what they're likely to say, and then think of what your next logical question would be, so you're not caught scrambling and thinking, how am I going to get there? Particularly for what you'll be doing, people have said the battle was easy. Which people? I had many friends in my unit. Who was your best friend? And you want to get down to the most primal experience that they have. Now, an easy way to think about this, so somebody's giving you a really involved answer, and they're going on at a little bit of length, and you're thinking about your follow-up, and then you're thinking about something else, and oh, that relates to something else I want to ask, and then they finish, and then you've got to come back with something. An easy way of doing that is using a technique called a mirror question. So my example, if the veteran tells you a story about how his ship dodged torpedoes, ask, where were you when your ship dodged the torpedoes? So again, make it back to the personal experience of the veteran that you're talking to. And that's easy to do, because you're just taking some of the phrasing that he just used or she just used with you, and you're turning that right back around into a question. Now, sometimes the best questions aren't even questions. You just have to, the person you're talking to just has to realize that you care about what they're saying. So you just react to it. If the veteran tells you something that amazes you, after they're done, you don't want to step on the soundtrack, then that's unbelievable. Show that you understood what they were saying, and then they'll come back and say, it was unbelievable. I can't believe we made it out of there alive. And they will give you something that you had not hoped for. Maybe you did hope for it, but not that you thought that you could get. And that will be the soundbite that you'll use. That if you're writing a print piece, that will be the quote. That will be the headline. That's the one that will actually make the piece work. And again, it's getting down to the real personal level of somebody's experience. Second example, if the veteran tells you a story about how his unit fought their way up the hill, overcoming a machine gun nest, say with awe, you fought past a machine gun nest? Yes, we did. Then you can get this story from them that, again, rather than going to your next question, you can actually, take them through the conversation and get them there. So how can you put all of this stuff together? In your interviews, there are going to be a lot of things that the veterans will say. Your job is to focus on a key one and to tell the story of that veteran through that incident or that moment, that crisis that is emblematic of their experience. Then from that, build out your research so you show why and context in the bigger picture of the war, of that battle. Why is that important? And that's your mission.